Welcome back to King Kong Kids Storytime. We are reading Ali and the Golden Eagle by Wayne Grover. Chapter 3 Ali's First Climb. 6 days later, I was finally on my way back to the canyon. It seemed a shame to experience such beauty by myself, but the climbers among the British and Americans I worked with either had different shift schedules or were not inclined to tackle such sheer cliffs. The sun had been up for half an hour as I headed out in the Land Rover. The surrounding mountains had a fiery fringe with the sun still behind them, and the desert itself was a light shade of pink from the dawn. It was a great day to be alive. As I approached the canyon, I saw something in the distance. It was just a shape near the area of the rim where the passage began, but it was something I didn't remember being there before. When I finally got close enough to see what it was, I was surprised to see my new friend Ali jumping up and down, waving his arms. He had apparently made the climb by himself. As I pulled to a stop, he looked at my Land Rover with his eyes wide. He had never seen a motor vehicle before. I got out and stood there while he slowly got over his amazement at the dusty vehicle. Ali, how did you get up from the canyon floor? I asked in surprise. I could not wait, Mr. Wayne. I decided to practice climbing up so I could meet you. Before I knew it, I was at the top. It was very exciting to climb, but I did not worry because I asked Allah to protect me. I have never been up here before. That was a very brave thing to do, Ali, but promise me you will not climb alone again. I want to be with you next time. I was quickly learning that Ali was a very unusual and brave young man. He took a deep breath and threw out his chest to its fullest. I am very strong, Mr. Wayne, but I will not climb again unless you are with me. What is that large machine you rode, Mr. Wayne? This is called a jeep. It can carry 4 men and much weight, much more than any burro. Come, touch it. It won't bite you. Ali's eyes were wide with awe as he carefully stepped up to the rover. He reached out to touch it. My father told me and my brothers about this thing you call a jeep, but I could not imagine how it really looked. It is so large and strange looking. I fear it, he said, looking to me for security. It is like the burros you ride in the valley, except it does not eat grass. It eats what we call gasoline, I explained. I unscrewed the cap of the spare gas can and stuck my fingers inside. This is gasoline, I said. Ali stuck his fingers in the can and pulled them out wet. He stuck one finger in his mouth and suddenly spit out violently. Mr. Wayne, this tastes terrible. How can your big burro eat it? I laughed out loud and wiped Ali's hand on my shirt. I knew that everything I took for granted would seem like a miracle to Ali, who had never in his life seen a machine except an occasional aircraft high overhead. Ali, come. I will show you how my Jeep eats gasoline. Get inside. He rolled his eyes and, unsure if he wanted to get closer, looked at the rover. I opened the door and got in, patting the passenger seat with my hand. Get in. I'll take you for a ride. Ali carefully climbed into the seat and sat down. He looked at the dashboard with its instruments and then down to the floor, where there were 2 gear shift levers. His eyes were wide as he looked at things he never knew existed. He cautiously reached out and tried to pull the main gear shift out of the floor as he would a carrot from the ground. He ran his hand over the dashboard and steering wheel. He turned the wheel a little, then sat back in utter amazement. "Mr. Wayne, this is a strange burro." "Jeep, Ali, Jeep," I said. "Jeep," he repeated. I pushed the horn button and he jumped. I pushed it again. "See? My Jeep calls out like your burro's." He reached and pushed the horn and drew his hand back quickly as it blew. He pressed it again and again, laughing loudly at the honking noise. I started the engine and said to him, "Now, we will take this big burro for a ride." The Rover began to move, and Ali's eyes again opened wide. I accelerated to about 30 miles an hour across the rocky plateau. "Allah be with us!" he shouted above the engine's whine. We sped across a smooth, grassy area toward a rocky pond where 3 wild burros were drinking. As I drove nearer, the burros jumped and ran away, while Ali watched with glee. "There are many wild burros up here, Ali. Many of the Arabians now drive trucks and jeeps like this one, and their burros run free. It is the same with camels." Ali sat entranced. I pointed out the sights as we bumped along, explaining each one as best I could. "The world is so big, Mr. Wayne," he said in amazement. "There is much more for you to see, Ali, much more," I assured him. "Come, Ali, I want to show you another miracle." We got out of the Rover and walked to the canyon, where we could see for about 60 miles as it swept westward toward the Red Sea. I raised my binoculars and focused them for clear vision. I looked down toward the village below and saw the people and animals starting a new day. "Here, Ali, look at your village." I held the glasses to his eyes and pointed them toward the village in the canyon. Ali jumped back and said the rocks were flying to hit me. I laughed. "No, Ali, these glasses allow you to see things that are far away and make them seem nearer." He looked again and laughed out loud. "I can see my father's house, and there is Alazar the blacksmith by his shop." He laughed in delight as he gazed down at his village far below. "Mr. Wayne, I have very much to tell my father of the world up here. He will not believe what I have seen." "Your father is a wise man, Ali. He knows about the world and is wise enough to live his life in the peace of your village. You are lucky to have such a father." I started to mention his mother too, but I knew from experience that outsiders did not refer to Arabian women in conversation with their men. As we stood on the canyon rim, a gentle dry wind started to blow up from the great sweeping chasm, rustling Ali's white cotton robe. We stood there in silence, looking across the distance. Then, from above, something caught my eye. Swooping down from high above the canyon, a female golden eagle dived like a bullet. She tucked in her wings and gathered speed, hurtling faster and faster until she was nearly a blur. Far below her, a hawk, unaware of the danger speeding toward it, floated serenely on the warm updrafts rising from the sun-heated canyon. The hawk appeared well-fed and lazy. Like a lightning bolt, the eagle struck, talons first, grabbing the unwary prey in mid-flight. A flurry of feathers scattered as the eagle pumped her big wings to climb higher with her catch. The hawk struggled and fought to free itself. but it was no use. The big eagle reeled in flight and flew straight toward a sheer wall of the canyon. She was joined by an even larger eagle, her mate, and together they flew wingtip to wingtip and seemed to disappear into the rocky face of the cliff. From where we stood, we had a ringside seat while the great birds of prey hunted ground animals and sometimes each other. We watched the golden eagles with awe. I have never seen a more powerful bird than the golden eagles, said Ali. They are so big and so fast in the air. If I could train one, I could be the best falconer in all the world. One of the villagers had told me Ali's father was the best falcon trainer in the Great Valley, and he had trained his sons to follow in his footsteps. I thought about the eagles I saw flying straight into the cliff. I knew they hadn't just disappeared. From years of watching eagles in America, I knew they must have a nest with their young waiting for them to bring fresh meat to eat. Ali, why don't you train an eagle instead of a falcon? I suggested. Oh no, Mr. Wayne. No one has ever trained an eagle to hunt for them. The eagles live high in the canyon walls, where no man can ever reach them. My father has often said he wished he could catch a young one to train. Ali, I know a man who lived in Russia as a prisoner for 27 years. He trained a huge black eagle to hunt for him outside the prison walls. He survived on the meat the eagle brought. He told me what a noble bird the eagle can be once it trusts a man. If he did it, you can too. Just the thought of having such a great bird excites me, said Ali, as we stood on the canyon wall and watched several other golden eagles soaring above the canyon, looking for prey. Their wings, measuring more than 6 feet across, were gold-colored, tipped in white. As they glided on the warm thermal air currents, I could hear the wind rippling over their wingtips and tail feathers. The warm air gently passing over their feathers made a whirring, fluttering sound. Eagles usually hunted in the morning hours when the air was cool and heavy, then floated lazily in the late afternoons on the warm updrafts after they had eaten their fill. Many other large birds abounded in this canyon on the far western edge of Arabia, directly across from the African continent. It was my guess that it contained one of the largest natural collections of predatory birds left in the world. Ali and I spent most of the day exploring. We had an American picnic with sandwiches and fruit I had brought from the compound. Ali was amazed at the sliced bread and had never seen or tasted an apple before. After we had eaten, we just stood watching the birds from the canyon rim. We saw eagles, hawks, falcons, vultures, and many varieties of other hunting birds. There were also dozens of species of smaller birds that flitted in and out of their nests along the canyon walls. Far below, on the canyon floor, lived foxes, baboons, antelope, rabbits, and many other furry creatures that managed to survive in the desolate region. As the day grew late and the sun inched lower in the western sky, it was time to get Ali back to his village. His father would be worried about him. Mr. Wayne, would you like to return with me to my village and eat with my family? I knew I would have to spend the night in the village because it would be dark before I could climb back out, but I liked the idea. Yes, Ali, I would like to meet your family and the villagers again. Let's climb down together. I'll go first. I knew the rover would be okay left alone on the rim. One of the nicest things about Arabia was that there was virtually no crime. No one would touch the locked vehicle. The climb down into the canyon took about an hour and was dangerous to anyone not knowing the exact route to take. Ali followed me like a mountain goat, sure-footed and agile. He had the bottom of his long white tobe tucked into his underpants while we climbed. Every few minutes he called down to me, "Mr. Wayne, can you make it?" "I think so, Ali," I answered. Finally, we reached the bottom and stood on the steeply sloped hills that led to his village. Darkness had come to the canyon as we made our way toward the firelights flickering from the houses. The smell of spices and wood smoke floated on the gentle breeze. I could hear sheep and goats bleating as we set foot on the rocky street. It was like a National Geographic television special. But I was living it instead of watching it. The village women, true to Saudi tradition, never showed themselves to strangers. I seldom got more than a fleeting glimpse of them, dressed in long black gowns with black veils covering their heads and faces as they moved about. For 1,000 years, the people of this isolated village had lived the same way. Their lives were simple and happy. They toiled, raising their food from the arid land they had terraced and watered with springs oozing from the canyon walls. They grew rich vegetables, pumpkins, and gourds, which they gathered and stored for the winter. They also raised animals, sheep, to provide wool for clothing, and goats to provide milk and cheese. But the best food of all was the small game their hunting falcons brought back, providing them with a selection of tender meats to feast on. Many Arabians, even the royal family, trained falcons, but the villagers knew more about them than anybody else, since they used the birds every day to hunt for food. "Mr. Wayne, my father said that the next time I bring you to the village, he would like to enter into a contest of strength with you. He wants to show the villagers that he is stronger than you. He is the strongest man in our village." The Saudis respected muscle. Without strength, it would be difficult for them to survive the harsh conditions in which they lived. Since I was larger than most of the villagers, Mustafa thought this would be a good opportunity to prove his strength once again. We passed several houses in the village before we came to Ali's. It had the tallest tower standing above the flat roof, marking it as the village chief's home. "Father, Father, I am home, and I have Mr. Wayne with me," called Ali as we approached the stairs to the house. "Enter with Allah's blessing," invited his father. I heard the rustling of the women's dresses as they disappeared from sight. Together, we climbed the stone stairs to the house.